This summary of Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman is about to begin. Enjoy. Key point 1. Control your thoughts. Control your life. Your brain is lying to you. Let that sink in for a moment. Actually, it's not lying. It's just deceiving you, but you could argue it's the same thing. Now, your brain isn't doing this to harm or upset you. It's trying to help you conserve energy. Overthinking is exhausting, so your brain assumes that making assumptions will be far less taxing, and it does all of this based on your thoughts. It's a good strategy in most cases, but it can affect your ability to make sound judgments. As humans, we subconsciously use several factors to make decisions: illusion, availability, and experience. We even use our gut or intuition. A lot of the time, we do this to try and solve a difficult problem, and we go with what we feel is right. We call this fast thinking, a quick and effective way to figure out a situation and make a decision. But does it always lead to the correct choice? Intuition can be a useful tool, but it doesn't follow logic. Strong decisions are based on facts. As a master of his trade, Kahneman's knowledge of behavioral economics, cognitive thinking, and psychology has put him among the best. He teaches how to train your brain to avoid assumptions and focus on reality. Are you ready to become a decisive master? Let's jump in. Key point 2. Are you System 1 or System 2? Modern science is still far from completely understanding the human brain. The complex grey lump of matter in our skull has captivated the attention of scientists since the dawn of time. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. However, psychologists Keith Stanovich and Richard West believe that we all have two systems for thinking. System 1 operates automatically and quickly without voluntary control and with little effort, responsible for fast thinking. System 2 allocates attention to heavy mental activity of any kind, responsible for slow thinking. While both systems are unique, they often work together. In fact, System 2 has a habit of micromanaging what System 1 is doing. We know that the human brain usually looks for the easy way out, but it's essential to learn about these two systems to understand how your brain thinks. Let's break it down. System 1 is a habitual decision-maker, influenced by choices you made in the past and heavily influenced by intuition. It often jumps to conclusions because it's not concerned with accuracy and wants to save time and energy. However, System 2 is a lot like a strict head teacher at school. It likes to look over things carefully and focuses on logic and fact. When you're stuck with a difficult decision, System 2 activates to delve into the problem and find the best solution. When System 1 is behaving itself, it asks for help from its more sensible sibling, System 2, if it can't find a way out of a tricky situation. This is when the two systems work together to find a way around the problem. However, the problem comes when System 1 decides to go rogue and doesn't ask for help from System 2. It assumes it can handle the issue on its own to save energy, and that's when jumping to conclusions occurs. When a solution requires a lot of effort, attention decreases. The more we are exposed to information and create ideas around what we learn, the more biases we develop. That is why it's so important to check the information we read online to ensure we believe the truth and not an altered version. Why is this important? Because System 1 loves to believe what it's told. Key point 3. Do you believe the facts? Cognitive bias affects so much of our lives that we don't even realize it. For example, if we hear that 5 million people in France eat toast for breakfast, our brains automatically assume that most French people have a love affair with their toasters. We believe this because of the sample we've been given. That's System 1 at work. Our brains don't think, hang on a minute, what about the other many millions of people who live in France? It just assumes, and from that, we develop a thought that is not based on fact. The anchoring effect occurs when a particular value for an unknown quantity influences your estimate of the whole. To assess this phenomenon, Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman created a fortune wheel, rigged to stop at 10 or 65. Students of the University of Oregon participated in this experiment. They were supposed to spin the wheel and then answer 2 questions about the percentage of African nations in the UN. The first one was, is that percentage higher or lower than the wheel's number? The second one was, what is your guess about the actual percentage? Those who drew 10 from the wheel gave lower percentages, and those with 65 answered with higher ones. Therefore, the random number they noticed before answering the questions influenced their judgment subconsciously. All of this is an example of how our brains try desperately to save energy. You can understand why. It's trying to ensure the rest of the bodily organs are working correctly. You could say it's got more important things on its plate. However, if we're unaware of these biases, we could end up making incorrect choices and assumptions. So while your brain isn't trying to trick you per se, it's not stopping to look at the hard facts. The psychological mechanisms that produce anchoring make us far more suggestible than most of us would want to be. Daniel Kahneman. A similar effect happens when we hear about traumatic events on the news. For instance, if we hear about a horrific plane crash, we're less likely to want to fly the next day. While you always knew about the possibility of accidents, now you know a specific example, and flying seems more dangerous than before. The key is to apply rational thinking and explore all sides. Key point 4. Statistics versus real-life experiences. System 2 loves statistics. If it could read books full of them, it would. That is because we can only make strong arguments and choices by arming ourselves with the facts. However, that doesn't mean that statistics are always accurate or a good indicator of what might happen next. Let's suppose you're from a place where humans don't eat meat. In that case, you'd struggle to believe that humans are responsible for the death of 65% of animals worldwide. That's because our everyday lives have shaped our way of thinking, and something different causes us to stop and widen our eyes. That's System 1, but then System 2 kicks in and helps us assess the situation more carefully. Also, regardless of existing facts and statistics, a situation is not always bound to follow a regular pattern. For example, if a serial killer has terrorized a community for a year, it doesn't mean the next murder will be committed by the same person. However, existing facts help in the absence of any other information. Predictions are helpful, planning tools, but shouldn't be relied upon as fact. It's true that predictions and forecasts are a part of everyday life. Across all fields of study, experts and professionals make predictions based on calculations and the facts available. We all do it. We base predictions on recent occurrences, experiences, or familiarity. We deduce what might happen next by seeing specific cues. To produce unbiased predictions, we must start with the average information available and then gradually work toward getting more data from existing guidelines, statistics, and facts. Again, we're working with System 2. You might wonder how you can stop making intuitive predictions not based on solid facts. The truth is that you can't stop it completely. It's part of your brain, System 1, but you can control it by training yourself to identify these predictions when they occur. Don't just accept everything as fact, question it and dig into it a little. Let System 2 do its work. If you care about being thought credible and intelligent, do not use complex language where simpler language will do. Daniel Kahneman. After all, illusions shape the way we view and approach life. That's why misinformation is so dangerous. When we view information rewritten to fit a certain agenda, we shape biases according to it. Exploring different viewpoints and challenging anything that seems shocking or too good to be true is far more reliable. Did you know? According to media statistics, 52% of Americans regularly encounter fake news online. Key point 5. Give System 1 a hard time. From this summary so far, you could be forgiven for thinking that System 1 is nothing but a pesky troublemaker. However, that's not the case. Our brains need balance, and both systems allow us to make choices and form opinions. The problems only begin when we're unaware of the bias that can creep in and affect our decisions. For instance, most of us look back at a successful event and don't think much about the steps taken to get there. We might assume that everything leading to that point was a success too. However, there were likely to have been many speed bumps along the road. Often, when we feel confident about something, we assume that we're right. We believe that our gut is guiding us. Yet, this just means that System 1 decided the information was pretty easy to handle and didn't need System 2 to help out. It jumps to conclusions and employs a "what you see is all there is" Weissiati approach. So we believe we're validated in our decision. Thinking about the what-if isn't being overly cautious. It's key to making solid decisions. The key to sound decision-making is using structured impressions and well-planned formulas. It means taking our time and thinking about all angles. While using our intuition is perfectly fine, a more focused approach is better in unfamiliar places and circumstances. Remember, intuition is primarily based on stored information, so we can't rely on it in situations we've never faced before. But what about optimism? Many people use this as a defense mechanism against doubt. It works sometimes, but being optimistic is the same as hoping for the best. Instead, we should use the pre-mortem tactic. Here we go against optimism, and instead of assuming something has spectacularly failed, rather than our minds tricking us, we turn the tables. Our brains kick into gear and try to work out what happened. We then use that information to identify potential hurdles and figure out how to fix them before they ever happen. Clever, right? Key point 6. Emotional decisions are rarely the best. We know that System 1 goes by what it has experienced, therefore creating memories, and System 2 works on logic, ruling our conscious thinking. The problem comes when trying to make a decision about something that we disliked in the past or felt emotional about. This situation causes a tug-of-war effect between the two systems. You see, our memory doesn't care about anything other than feelings. For instance, imagine you went on a trip with your friends. You had lots of fun, discovered new places, and felt blissful. But then, as you were walking around the city, someone pushed you to the ground and stole your phone. You felt angry, frustrated, and sad. Even though the whole trip before that moment was perfect, the intense feelings you experienced during that one negative occurrence tainted your memories. What does this do? It may cause you to avoid that place or situation in the future so that you don't go through that experience again. It's a form of protection in some ways. Yet, logic says that we're unlikely to experience the same thing again in the same place. Putting the brakes on an emotional decision and exploring all angles is difficult, but awareness is critical. Otherwise, we run the risk of missing out on great adventures and opportunities. Some decisions in life involve the risk of loss. Both systems don't like that at all, so they will always try and push us toward the safest bet, regardless of the probable outcome. For instance, if you know the ex-love of your life is likely to be at a party you've been invited to, you'll want to avoid it because you know it's going to hurt. The same goes for gambling. When the probability of a loss is higher than that of a win, you may instinctively want to avoid it. Of course, many people go against their instincts, but the pull is still there. Put simply, as long as there is a chance for a loss, the brain begins working toward avoiding it. Adopting risk policies to guard against loss is helpful, but it's not good to exaggerate it. See a decision as one of the numerous options available, and don't automatically dismiss an option because it contains potential loss. Ask yourself, what are the chances? And be realistic with your answer. Since rewards and punishments mold your reaction and motivate your actions, you should pay attention to them. Conclusion. Your experiences and biases shape your thoughts, and your thoughts affect your actions. So you can see why it's so important to make sure that the choices you make are positive and not drenched in misinformation. Ultimately, there is nothing wrong with thinking fast, as long as you're sure that cognitive biases aren't at the heart of your decision. And of course, sometimes thinking slow is just tiresome and energy-wasting. Your brain is so complex that it's very easy to assume it's working for you in the right way. And most of the time, it is. But we live in a digital age where we get swamped with information at every turn. Taking the time to assess your thoughts and understand how they're formed is key to making solid choices based on what's best for you. After all, you wouldn't want to miss a fantastic opportunity, would you? Try this. Try journaling for a few weeks and see if you can spot any patterns in your thoughts. Do these thoughts come from a place of truth, or are you being influenced by misinformation? Challenge any troublesome biases by reading solid facts and statistics. Every time you need to make a decision, stop for a second and think things through. Putting on the brakes will allow you to avoid unhelpful choices. Summary complete. Please, take a moment to rate it so we can help you grow in the best way possible.